Hey y'all, in this episode of Girl Talk at the Dan Gable Museum, we sit down with Kirsten Dlagnev. Her husband, Travell, is the assistant coach at Ohio State University. He was a two-time NCAA Division II champion, a Pan American Games champion, a two-time Olympian, and he won the bronze medal at the 2012 Olympic Games in London. Hey guys, we're here with Kirsten Dlagnev, and her husband is Travell, and he is an assistant coach at Ohio State. All right, Kirsten, how did you and Travell meet?
We met in college in Kearney, Nebraska. We were going to a small Division II school, and we met at church one Sunday. I was a sophomore in college, and it was his last year. And I was with my roommate. He was with some of his wrestling roommates, and my roommate knew them from SBA. And so I met them, and we all went out to Chinese afterwards. So we kind of got to know each other, and we were friends after that.
I love it. So if Chinese was like a first group date, what was y'all's first official date like?
Our first official date was a few months later. It was after school was out. I was back living in Omaha, where my parents are, for the summer. And he had finished at UNK and had moved out to Cedar Falls, Iowa, and was training at Northern Iowa, training with Holly Thompson. And he randomly was like, hey, you want to meet up in Des Moines tonight? It was a Saturday, or I think it was a Saturday, maybe not. It might have been a weeknight. He asked if I wanted to meet up randomly, and it was already like late afternoon, and it takes 2 hours to get there. So I was like, all right, sure. So we drove, I think it's about 2 hours from Omaha. I drove, and we met up for dinner at Texas Roadhouse. And I did not know that he had to leave for the Olympic trials early the next morning. Like, he had to leave for the airport from his house at around 4 in the morning, I think. I didn't know that until after our date. And we hung out, and we walked around Target, and we were there until midnight before we said goodbye. And then he drove back to his house and just packed, and he didn't have enough time to sleep, so he didn't even go to sleep before he left for the trials. And then he had one night of sleep in Vegas, I believe it's where it was at. And then he wrestled in the trials. So we always joke about him not getting any sleep 2 nights before he wrestled, because I kept him up till midnight at our date, and then he went home to pack and didn't have any time to sleep.
Oh, that's funny. I love that you guys were at Target until late. That is a good store to be in until really late to pack.
Great.
Okay, so what was your wrestling background prior to meeting Travell?
I did not have much of a wrestling background. My brothers wrestled when I was really little, so I do vaguely remember going to some kids' tournaments, but I never paid attention. I had no idea any of the rules or any of the moves, anything really. So when he wrestled in college, I think I watched him one time when we were friends. We had the nationals at our school, and I didn't even go to the nationals, and he won, and our team won. So that's how much I knew about it and checked it out.
That's funny. But clearly now you are definitely a fan. So
yes,
at least you got you checked in.
Yeah, we always joke about it now, because when they're competing, when Ohio State's competing or his guys are competing, I'm up in the middle of the night when his international guys are competing, or when Ohio State's competing, I'm like, how do I watch this? I need to go somewhere so I can see it. I'm like, I'm actually a fan now. This is crazy.
I love it. So this past summer, it was announced, that the 2012 Olympic gold medalist in freestyle at 120 kilograms from Uzbekistan was stripped of his medal due to using steroids. Can you tell me how you found out that Travell was awarded the bronze medal?
Yes, I found out. He called me, and he was like, hey, I'm getting the bronze medal from the 2012 Olympics. I was like, oh, wow, that's great. Apparently he had found out while he was at a meeting people started blowing up his phone with texts, and then he got on Twitter and saw the news, and he's like, all right, I guess this is actually a thing, and it's happening.
That's awesome. I love that he found out through Twitter.
Yes. Yeah, I guess that's a way to find out a lot of news these days.
Right. So do you guys know when he will receive the bronze medal?
I'm not totally sure. I think they're actually still maybe testing samples, because just this past week, the guy who got moved up to silver popped positive. So it seems like there was just a bunch of cheaters in his weight class, apparently. So that's 3 guys so far that have been stripped of their medals.
Holy cow.
So unfortunately, I mean, it happens to be guys on the other side of the bracket, so they keep moving up the guys from the other side of the bracket. But yeah, it's funny to know that he was just competing against a bunch of steroid users, but they haven't really gave him a whole lot of information regarding when he'll get the medal, because obviously they're still working out who's getting which medal, because they're testing samples still. They've talked about possibly having a ceremony at the Olympics this summer, so that's a possibility, but nothing's set in stone yet.
Well, hopefully they will get the rest of those samples tested so he can figure out if he's going to be moving up another spot or not.
Yeah, I don't know if that would happen, because it's the other side of the bracket, unless the guy on his side who's the gold medalist now, unless he tested positive. I don't think that Travell's placement would change at all, but then again, I don't really know how they do all this stuff, so I guess we'll wait and find out.
Well, we at least know that Travell was clean, so he's in the clear for them retesting his sample.
Yep, no problem there.
Thank goodness. So how did you handle the stress of the 2012 and 2016 Olympic Games?
The 2012 Olympic Games were not that stressful for me. We hadn't had any kids yet. I was, young, and I was happy to travel. I had some of my best friends took work off, and we went over for 2 weeks. So we got there right before the opening ceremonies, and we watched that at the USA House, which is just a place for the families of Olympians. They have a bunch of TVs and food, and they make it really nice for the families to come and just enjoy and be able to watch, even if you can't attend a lot of the events or the ceremonies. So we went over and we enjoyed that, and then we traveled around London and saw all the sights and went to Paris for a few days and back to London. So really the preparation wasn't stressful for me. Being there wasn't stressful for me. Travell had a little injury, right? I think it was at the training camp leading up to the Olympics. He hurt his rib, so he wasn't stressful for about the 2 weeks leading up. So I think he was a little bit stressed mentally, because he's like, well, I'm not wrestling. Am I going to be able to perform? So it was definitely more stressful for him than it was for me. And I ended up finding out I was pregnant with our first son while we were there. So the only stressful part could have maybe been that, because I wanted to tell him, but I wouldn't tell him because I didn't want to, I didn't want to stress him out, or what if he was scared or nervous about all those feelings. So I waited to tell him until after the competition. So hopefully there was a little bit of joy after, he had lost in the last eight seconds of the bronze medal match. So he was pretty bummed about that, but I think the news of our baby coming brought a little joy to it. And the 2016 Olympics were definitely more stressful. We had 2 kids then, and 2 months after our second son was born, my husband injured his back in the beginning of 2015. And so he was in a lot of pain. They couldn't really figure out what was going on. He continued to train when he could and was doing a lot of therapy, but nothing seemed to help much. He did end up making the world team in 2015, which that was stressful for me because, our health insurance depended on him being on the team all those years. And it was a little questionable that year because he was just in so much pain. I didn't know how that was going to go. But he ended up giving his world team spot to the backup so he could get back surgery that fall, or I think it was late summer. And so we didn't know what 2016 was going to look like. He was hoping that the back surgery was going to solve his problems and he'd be able to, compete in the 2016 Olympics and things would be magically better. Unfortunately, things didn't go that way. He still had chronic pain. He wasn't, be able to wrestle all the time. He wasn't able to be himself. And so leading up to the 2016 trials, he was really in a lot of pain at that time. He was just experiencing some different pain too. So he was more concerned about his future than necessarily making the Olympic team. He was ready to just be done. He didn't want to just quit then because it was finally the Olympic year, and obviously those are big dreams that he'd been pursuing and wanting to achieve. He was definitely in so much pain that he wasn't sure he wanted to continue. And I was out in Nebraska for a couple weeks leading up to the trials. I was there with our 2 little kids because I wanted him to be able to get good rest, not have the kids keeping him up at night or anything. And he called me and told me the day before the trials that he wasn't sure he was even going to wrestle because he was just in so much pain and he hadn't been able to train. And he just didn't think that would be the right choice because of the pain he was experiencing. So he said, I'm just going to take it for what it is, and if I wake up in the morning and my pain is better or gone, I will go out there. If not, I'm not going to compete. So I went to the trials that next day, not even sure if he was going to wrestle. I hadn't even talked to him that morning. And when they called his name, he came out. So I was super excited because I was like, he must be feeling a little better to even be out there. And then at the Olympic Games, his back had continued to feel better for a little bit. For a couple of weeks, it felt, like things were heading in the right direction. And then they went south again, and things got pretty bad. So he really only wrestled live, I think it was 4 or 5 times before he competed in the Olympics. So he didn't have a ton of expectations going into it. He was basically just going to finish what he had started. And they brought the backup just in case he decided he didn't want to wrestle, because at that point, all he was doing was walking on the treadmill. He hadn't been really doing anything else because of his pain. So when we all went to Rio, which was awesome. That was fun. I brought the kids, my family, part of my family came, his mom came. So it was fun being together with them, but there was definitely a lot of stress surrounding the actual tournament and what was going on because there was a lot of uncertainty and just emotional stress. And for him, emotional and physical stress because of his injury. But he went out there and he wrestled. It did not go how he wanted, obviously. He wrestled his first match, which he was excited he was getting a returning world medalist because he was like, great, I'll go out there, I'll wrestle 1 match, I will probably lose, and I will be done. Well, it turns out he was losing, and then he had a takedown, and then he was ahead, and he's like, oh, shoot, I'm still breathing out of my nose. Like, I still have energy, and now I'm winning. So he won that match and won the following match against an easier opponent, but his back started to lock up in that match, and he knew things weren't going to look good for the rest of the tournament. So he ended up losing in the bronze medal match. He really couldn't do anything. He got teched in that tournament for his first time ever as a senior competitor. And that was really hard on him, just the fact he was still experiencing so much pain and that he went through with all of that, and he was confused in all of it. I think the injury had just taken a toll on him physically and emotionally, and he was just spent.
Wow, talk about tough as nails.
I mean, I definitely think he's a tough guy, and he handled it, I think, as well as anyone could have handled it, but he definitely struggled, and it was, a struggle to watch. And obviously I was praying and hoping for the best, and at that time it was like it was confusing knowing what's going on. Okay, what's the future going to look like? Is this going to be our life? Or is he just going to be laying on, the only time he can be comfortable is laying on the couch forever? And that was rough, but I guess that comes with the territory of being a wrestler. So many wrestlers experience crazy injuries, and whenever I go to a tournament and I see 50-year-old guys walking around, they're limping around, and I think that's just the life a lot of them have.
I think you're correct about that. Now, does he still experience pain from the back stuff now?
He does, yeah. It's not, thank the Lord, it is not as severe as it was. He does have chronic pain. He says every second of every day it's there, and he notices it. And some days are better than others. I do remember one moment, I don't know, it was probably like 2 years ago. We were in the wrestling room and working out, and some exercise or stretch he was doing, he's like, right now, right in this moment, I have no pain. Like, if I just stay right here, I have no pain at all. I was like, okay, don't move and do it. But, they've never really figured out exactly what's going on and why he still has this lingering chronic pain. But he can live life now. He's up and he's around. He's obviously more comfortable when he's laying down. So when he's at home, there's a lot of laying down. A lot of the kids just laying down with him, jumping on him. So we've found our normal, and it's easy for me to forget that he's in pain a lot of times and constantly. But we've adjusted, and there are times where it's better and he's able to do more. But I mean, I'm grateful that it's not like the shocking pain that it was, where he felt like, oh my goodness, like, am I going to go paralyzed, or what's happening to me? It's more just like an annoying, lingering pain. And then if he does too much, it can get more intense.
Wow. I still can't imagine having to wake up every day and deal with chronic pain. That is.
Oh, yeah, I cannot either. It's definitely given me so much compassion for people who live that life every day, because I'll go through times where it's like I tweak my back or tweak my knee or something from working out, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I hope this doesn't last forever, because this is terrible.
Yeah, I can imagine. I would be in the same boat as you. I don't handle little injuries very well either. So what role do you play with the Ohio RTC wrestlers?
I don't play a huge role, but I'm definitely a good cheerleader. I go to as many things as I can, and like I said, I'll stay up in the night and try and watch their tournaments when they're wrestling at crazy hours of the night internationally. And during the holidays, if they don't have, if they're not going home to visit their family, we'll have them over, or we'll have them over just random nights if they want to come over and have dinner or something like that. So it's not, I'm not all up in their space, and I'm not there all the time, but I try to be there for what I can and host them when they want to come over, and we just enjoy spending time with them. My husband, Terrell's, he's great friends with them. They love each other, and he loves his guys, and, they mean a lot to him and our family, and we enjoy that we get to be part of their journeys for sure.
So I like how you said that during the holidays, for the guys that can't come home, y'all invite them over. How do you handle being away from your family?
It's been a growing experience. Definitely the beginning. I've been in Columbus, Ohio now almost 10 years since Terrell and I got married. So it's become home here, but it's definitely a challenge being away from home, especially after we had kids. You never realize how important family is, I don't think, until you have children, and you just long for them to have what you had growing up, if you grew up around family and cousins, and not having family around to help me, when I am in a bind and need help with the kids. That's something wish I had, but, we've learned to figure it out, and Terrell and I make it work, There's times where I have an appointment, and sometimes the kids will have to go with him to work because that's the option that we have. So we work together to make it work. But I definitely miss my family, and ideally we'd love to be out in Nebraska, but you can't really just apply for a coaching position. So if the coaching position ever opens up there, I know Terrell would jump on it in a heartbeat, but everything has to align. So I know God will make it all work out when it's the right time, I pray. And I guess if it's not the right time, it won't come. But, my trust is that God will have us where he wants us in the right time, so I can just put my hope and my peace in that.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful way to look at it, because you're correct. Coaching positions don't just open up.
Right.
That's not like a regular job you can just kind of apply for, put your resume out there, and hope that it catches something. There's got to be a position.
Yep.
So how do you juggle being a mom and being a coach's wife and at the same time being Kirsten?
Let's see. It's just how life goes, I think. I think everyone has this, whether you're a coach's wife or not. You have to figure out your place and everything and what works best for you and your family. So I don't feel like it's necessarily a juggle, but it's just life where I'm at right now. The kids are still young, so they still require a lot of attention. I've got a 6 and a 5-year-old. One's in kindergarten, one's in preschool. So my daily life still revolves around taking care of them and, getting them where they need to be, and they have some activities after school. They're finally they're in swimming lessons and a ninja gymnastics class. So they have fun little things for them that I get to take them to, and I don't feel like I'm being pulled in one direction or another. It's just we're a family. We make it work. We work as a good team. If there's something I need help with, Terrell steps up when he's available, when he's in town and not traveling. He will help out and go pick up the boys from school if I, have an appointment for something, or this Friday I have an appointment and he's going to have to take him to work with him in the morning until I can go get him. So we just work together to make it work. I don't feel like it's necessarily different than people who aren't in the coaching world. It's just, it might look a little bit different, but everyone has to find their own groove of how their family dynamic works. And it looks a little different maybe because he travels so much. And during those moments, a lot of the, burden falls on me, but that's just how life goes. And it's not like it's a strain or it's viewed in a negative way. It's just, this is where we're at, and this is how it's working for our family. And I'm thankful that we are a good team, and Terrell is super supportive, and he understands that I carry a lot of the load and that there are a lot of times he can't be there, and he does what he can to help and ease the stress for me in every way possible. He's awesome.
That's great. I love that you guys are teamwork. So you said that he's going to have to take the boys to work with him on Friday. Do they love going to work with Dad?
Oh, they love it so much. If they could just go to work with him every single day, they would. They love Terrell so much. It's the greatest thing ever. And sometimes it's like, oh man, he'll think like, oh, I've got my back injury. Like, I wish I could be a more fun dad, but they just love being with him, even if they aren't up and running around, just like laying with him, and he'll tickle them till they cry. They just want to spend every single second with him when he's around. And so if they can go to work with him, that's like the dream come true.
That's so sweet. I love it. So if you could go back to before your relationship with Terrell and tell yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would probably be that life isn't going to be a linear trajectory. Like, things aren't going to just start from where they are now and be in a constant upward motion. Things aren't always going to go right. Things aren't always going to look positive. Things aren't always going to be easy, but it's going to be good and it's going to be worth it. So I think going into a relationship and you have all of these hopes and these dreams and these expectations, and then you live life, and life happens for everyone, and you hit some bumps along the road, and that's okay. Like things aren't going to be easy all the time, and things aren't going to look perfect, and there's going to be crazy things like Trevel's back injury and things we have to deal with and go through that are hard and stretching and growing, but that's also part of the beauty in life and how we learn and we grow and develop a dependency on God. So I'm thankful that despite the struggles, I feel like my perspective has grown in a way that it might not have grown this way if we hadn't gone through the things that we've gone through. So I think I would just, let myself know that it's going to be okay. It's okay to have struggles, and it's okay to have grimy times in life because it's going to be worth it.
That is a beautiful piece of advice. So we all know that Trevel's got some pretty sweet dance moves, but can you tell me something about him that most people don't know?
I will say there is not a lot of things that people don't know about him because the guy happens to be an open book and to say everything how it is. But a funny thing, I guess a unique thing would be that he spoke 3 other languages before he ever learned English.
Oh, wow. What languages did he speak?
He's Bulgarian. I think most people know that. He moved to the United States when he was 4. But he learned to speak German when he was in the refugee camp in Austria before they came to the United States. And then he also learned to speak Spanish before he learned English from bilingual class after he got to the United States, because all of the kids in his bilingual class were Hispanic. And so instead of learning English in bilingual class, he learned Spanish. And his parents were like, what in the world? Aren't you supposed to be learning English? So he had picked up on a couple languages before he got to English, but now he's a great English speaker. So you got it.
That is awesome. Wow. I cannot even imagine being able to speak 4 languages. That is pretty cool.
Right? Yeah, I can't either. I'm like, I hope my kids have that much ease in learning languages.
Heck yeah. Does he speak the other languages to the boys?
He doesn't. I don't even think he remembers how to speak German or Spanish because he hasn't used it since he was little. But he speaks Bulgarian with his mom, but he doesn't speak it at home. Besides random words, he'll randomly say, like, hello, or, they'll ask him to say a word in Bulgarian. But I've always said, I'm like, babe, you should just speak to them in Bulgarian so they have to learn it. He's like, he just isn't comfortable with it. He's like, I don't speak every day, as good every day as someone from Bulgaria. He's like, when I'm around it and I hear it being spoken to me, then it just comes to me. But if I'm just trying to pull it out, it's harder.
Isn't that funny how that works?
It is funny, yeah. When he goes home and he just starts speaking to his mom, I'm like, whoa, what's happening? What are you guys saying?
That's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kirsten. We appreciate you coming on Girl Talk and letting us interview you.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is such a fun series, and it's been so fun to listen to all the other coaches' wives' stories. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it.